Hi gorgeous ones, what a fantastic journey we've been together with Fazilet Khanum. She started in the very first episode having a job as a head housekeeper in the mansion of the Egeman family. And as she walked in, she looks around and she says to herself that one day she will be the lady of the house. And that's a journey that she started 50 episodes ago with her daughters. And very soon she was instrumental in one of her daughters marrying the emperor of the house, Hazim Egeman. So we saw her tactics to interfere with her daughters' love lives, Eche with Yasin and Hazan with Yaz. She tried to stop those relationships, but she learned very soon by episode 50, of course, that money doesn't bring happiness to her daughters. It only brings misery, that they were meant to be with Yasin and Yaz, and that was their destiny, and she couldn't do anything to prevent that from happening. So I've got my notes right here. We finished episode 49, entering into episode 50 with Sinan's big massive gathering where he humiliated Yaz in front of everybody, and the press was there as well, about Yaz's identity. Yaz all of a sudden loses his sense of belonging to the Egemans. He finds out that his whole life he lived a lie, that he wasn't who he was Mehmet Yildiz. So Sinan got him totally humiliated. We see Hazan rush to the hall where this meeting was, trying to support Yaz, who then walks out, and she says, turn around, speak to me, I don't care who you are, I don't care what your name is, who your father is, it doesn't matter, you should know who you are, and I love you for who you are, and I'm never going to give up on you. He says that they're over, but she still follows him. So till the morning, in fact, as she said, she falls asleep on the park bench, and he puts his coat on her and says, goodbye Hazan, we are over, we're finished. But during that day, Fazilet goes to his house and begs for forgiveness, and she admits that when she found out that the madwoman Karime was his mother and that he wasn't a true Egeman, she did her very best to prevent Hazan from developing any further feelings for him. She in fact made Sinan propose to her and put a ring on her finger, despite of Yaz, and she begs him to look into his heart and to do the right thing and to do what's right for him and Hazan, i.e. go and marry her daughter, so that they can actually be happy once and for all. She also makes peace with Yasin. She approaches Yasin and says to him that she is very regretful of what she and his mother did, and how they destroyed their relationship of him and Eche. She sends his phone a copy of his mother's letter, in which she had confessed her fears to Yasin, that he had just married Celine, that she was worried Celine is mad, she's crazy, that Eche was the right girl for him. She says how sorry she felt about what she'd done, that Eche had come to her house telling her that she was pregnant with Yasin's baby when he was in jail. She didn't believe her. She pushed her out. She pushed her away, and now she was regretful. And this is just before, and luckily she writes this letter just before she's pushed in front of a car by Celine. I mean, it appears like it was an accidental death, but Celine was obviously the root cause of her death. Talking about Celine, she had an ending that only she deserved in this show. She was reported to the police by Eche and also by the nurse who kidnapped Eche's baby. She confessed that Celine Egeman had paid her money for the abduction, so the police were after her. She, however, thinks that her dad will always support her and she will literally be able to get away with murder yet again. So she creeps into Eche's bedroom, trying to put a pillow on the baby's face to suffocate the baby. When Eche walks in, Eche starts shouting, and then you suddenly have Hazim and Fazilet and Yasin walk in as well. Hazim says, "I have just called the police. Celine, you are sick, you need help. Don't do this, don't do anything stupid. You need help, and the police, if you do anything stupid, the police will have you put in jail." At this point, she has a gun pointing at the baby, and then next minute at Eche, and vice versa. And when her father tells her that he has rung the police to come and get her, she's beside herself with anger, and she says, "I can't believe that you would turn me in order to protect Eche," and points the gun to her own head and shoots herself. When Hazim sees this shocking vision of her daughter dying and killing herself, has a stroke, and spends the rest of his days in rehab in a aged care facility. Eche goes back to school. Fazilet leaves the mansion. She buys a beautiful little country cottage and plants beautiful flowers everywhere. It's like paradise in this little garden, this beautiful little home, very homely. And Eche and the baby live with her there. Eche goes back to school or university, and they all kind of pick up their lives from there. Yasin goes back to basketball. He becomes a sort of leading basketball player, wins a prize, and is very supportive with Eche and the baby. You see a scene where they've gone to see Hazim. He comes to pick up the baby, so she can then go from there to her school. And he says that maybe one day the three of us could go for dinner as a family. And she says, "Birgun belke," which is maybe one day. So, and she turns around and smiles at them both, and she goes off to school. So you know that they're going to eventually have that inevitable reunion as a wonderful couple that they're meant to be. They were actually one of my, most people feel that this story is based mainly on Hazan and Yagis, but I think that Eche and Yasin's love story is as beautiful in its own right. So that was a very beautiful ending there. A lot of truths came out, as well as Yaz finding out that he's actually Mehmed Yildiz. Apparently many years ago, Sevinch loses a baby in her tummy, so the baby was stillborn. when Hazim finds out, he's very upset and leaves the hospital to go somewhere quiet. So he goes back to his factory, and there he finds out that he's not alone. There was a group of workers who had been laid off and who were maybe forming a gang to have a mutiny in the company. They get caught in an abyss of fighting, and the gang leader happens to be Karime's husband. Starts fighting with Hazim, and in the abyss of it all, he's murdered in the hands of Hazim. It was actually an accident waiting to happen. At this point, there's a woman screaming. Obviously, she's married to the dead worker. Baby, my baby's coming. And Hazim observes a little baby boy being born, and he feels that Sevinch losing their baby, the baby's father dying, and he being born all at the same time can't be just a coincidence. He feels that maybe that baby is meant to belong to him and Sevinch. So offers the poor mother if he could take care of this baby, if he could maybe even buy the baby from her, pay her the money so she can start her life, now a widower of course, and she doesn't hesitate for a minute, and accepts the money and gives the baby without even thinking. Of course she spends the rest of her days regretting not being around the baby, not seeing him grow up, and always confronting Hazim's attempts to keep the baby away from her, to a point that they had to send Yaz to America, where he could be safe and just grow up, and Karime wouldn't be able to reach him. Also, he would be at an age where he would be questioning why he's a little bit different to his brothers, just in case he suspects at any time that he doesn't belong. So they sent him as far away as possible to America. Years later, Karime eventually finds out that she can do some sort of DNA testing to confirm which of Hazim's 3 boys belong to her. Sinan finds out about the DNA testing and finds out that Yaz is actually Karime's son. This information happens to leak to Hazan, so the two of them at one point realize that Yaz is Karime's son. Now, at that point, Sinan and Hazan were an item. They were a boyfriend-girlfriend, and Sinan was determined to protect his beloved, adorable brother Yaz from this truth, from this knowledge. So he pretends that he alters the results to appear that he is Karime's son. He confronts Karime and sort of to try and shut her up, and console her that she's finally found his son. He thinks that he can just close that chapter, and at least his brother would be safe from the knowledge that he's not who he thought he was, that he's been living a life of lies. It was only when Sinan suspected and eventually found out that there was something going on between Hazan and Yaz. Hazan takes off the engagement ring and throws it to the ground, and he screams and shouts, why don't you want to marry me? It suddenly clicks that his brother and Hazan have something going on, and has that awful crash off the cliff. When he wakes up, he pretends that he has insomnia and dementia. Dementia. He makes the doctors tell the family that he has lost his memory, but in fact he hasn't. He remembers every single thing, and he has a game plan to revenge both Hazan and Yaz. So he tells Fazilet that you need to tell your daughter that she's to marry me, otherwise I will inform the press and I will tell the whole world that she has betrayed her fiancé by falling in love with her fiancé's brother. And this is in Turkey and in the East would be quite dishonorable to do for a girl or a man to a partner. And in this game plan, Hazan is very upset. Obviously she doesn't want to go along with it, but she has to, because the doctor says that the slightest upset would be bad and detrimental to Sinan's health. So Hazan goes along with this game plan, but very unhappily so. When feeling that he needs to investigate what went on between Hazan and Yaz continues, he finds the video clip, the recording from the security cameras of the gym where Yaz kissed Hazan, and he now has a new game plan. In his anger, he sets off to have a 40th anniversary for the Egemen company, and on the face of it, that's what everybody is invited to, feeling that they're going to celebrate the 40th anniversary of this company. However, that's not the reason that he had set up this meeting. The reason was to reveal to everyone in attendance and the press that were filming of Yaz's identity. So everyone comes in, turns up, and the lights go down and the big screen turns on, and Sinan very cruelly and ruthlessly reveals that Yaz is in fact Mehmed Yildiz. The lights go back on and he invites Kerime to the hall and introduces Kerime to Yaz. Everybody, the family and Yaz are in a state of shock, and Gökhan and Neil try and disperse the public to leave the hall so that they can just see what's going on and see to what's happening. Everybody leaves. Yaz says it's over, and he leaves the hall. Hazan, who managed to get herself to this event, follows him out. Hazim tells Sinan that he's no longer his son, he doesn't know him, he doesn't belong to him, and disowns him straight away. Hazan follows Yaz to the park bench and says, I'm never going to leave you, I don't care who you are, I don't care who your father is, who your mother is, where you come from, whether you're Mehmed or whether you're Yaz, you should know who you are, you shouldn't lose yourself, a sense of who you are. And falls asleep at the park bench. He spends all night thinking, and in the morning you see him put his coat on her as she was lying there in the cold air by the lake, and he says, we are over, and he walks away. He walks away and reports Kerime to the police, who have her imprisoned for the death of her aunt, and she had been in hiding, as you may remember, since she had attempted to bury him and Hazan. So she's guilty of those two things, and so she's immediately put in a cell. Hazim, in repentance to Yaz and in showing to him how guilty he feels about the murder, be it all accidental, of his father. So at the same time, he turns himself in, and he's questioned by the police, and he's put in a cell for a few hours. When Karima finds out that this has happened, she wants to offer her one and only gift to Yaz by saving the Egeman family face, if you like. She tells the police that her ex-husband's death was by accident, that Hazim Bey is innocent, so Hazim is released. Yaz visits her and asks her if he has any living relatives, and she's determined not to have him confused any further. So she wants to ensure that Yaz has peace. So she says to him that his only family are the Egemans, that Hazim is his father, that noble woman Sevinch is his mother, and his two brothers. So thus she wants him to have closure and a sense of belonging. Obviously she's very regretful of giving him away, but what she can do is give him, let him keep the only family that he has known, the Egemans. When he leaves the prison, she hangs herself in her cell. She was obviously a very sick lady, and she was never really going to be right. So in a way, her death marks the end of her misery in her own hands. I've just got a few notes because I want to make sure that I haven't missed anything. Right, so another beautiful story for me in the whole series, as well as Eche and Yasin, Hazan and Yaz, belongs to Gökhan. Gökhan turns out to be an incredible man. He was the most steady of the three brothers. He manages to rescue his father's business. Hazim goes bankrupt just before he has a stroke, and his mansion is put for sale. But Gökhan is determined that the Egemen Empire will never die as long as he's alive, so he sets up a new company, which is fantastic. And Yasemin, well, she really and truly surprised all of us, including Gökhan, by proving her ultimate and absolute love for him and her loyalty to him when he follows her in a meeting with Kodrat in the middle of the night, where he is obviously been asking her for money for some reason, and he catches them in the act, and finds out that he's bribing her for a big bag of money, and wants to know what is going on. Gökhan says, oh, you owe me a lot more than this, and he says, Yasmin, what's going on? He says, so you don't know the true identity of your wife, and turns around and sees the tattoo on Qudrat's hand which says Jamila. So he realizes that Yasmin is actually Gökhan's ex-wife Jamila, and that her daughter belongs to Qudrat. Qudrat has his money in the bag, pulls out a gun to kill Gökhan and to take Yasmin away, go and collect their daughter and leave. But Yasmin throws herself in front of Gökhan to shield him and is shot in the stomach. And at that point I thought that she's passed away, that she's gone. But towards the end of episode 50, the grand finale, you see a most wonderful scene. One of my favorite scenes of the finale is when you see Gökhan walking up the stairs going into his new offices, and he's sitting at his desk and he reads a newspaper article which reveals that there has been a prison riot and one of the prisoners, Qudrat, has died in the sort of mayhem. You then see Yasmin walk in, a few months pregnant, with her lovely daughter, who calls him daddy and sits on his lap. He then gets up and gives Yasmin a beautiful kiss, and you know that they're going to live very happily ever after. So yes, I have enjoyed, in summary, Fazilet Khanum Bekizlari. It's one of my favorite shows. I've loved every minute of it. It's a wonderful story, and I hope that those of you who are waiting for your seasons to come back after the summer breaks in Turkey, me personally, I'm waiting for San Anlat Karadeniz and Yasak Elma to come back. If you have a couple of months on your hands and you don't know what to watch and you've never watched Fazilet Khanum Bekizlari, I highly recommend that you watch it. I think you'll really enjoy it. So I hope this summary has been useful. Until my next vlog, goodbye for now.